Welcome to Encyclopedia, the channel where we explore historic events from the people who are actually involved, at the same time debunking myths and misinformation. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification bell. Let's get into part 2 of Success Breeds Silence, reliving Jackson family abuse claims. In celebrity, people are usually perceived to be what they are in their craft, in their everyday lives. At the time, there was a shift. Some siblings were not as popular as others, but the Jackson brand overall was still strong. Protecting the brand was a priority, and there would be letters sent to some of these stations during these interviews in an attempt to debunk these accusations. As we know, the goal was about getting some sort of mental help for everyone, but in those times, mental illness was not a serious conversation. No one wanted to be labeled as crazy, but speaking against the brand would get that label planted on you quickly. Let's get into it.
About writing that she was abused as a child, 33% of those surveyed thought she was courageous for telling the truth. Yet another 52% thought LaToya was guilty of exploiting a personal matter. An expert in the field of child abuse says that credibility often becomes a delicate problem.
The real key issue in child abuse is the secret and the sense that nobody will believe you and the sense there's nobody to tell and that you will be blamed.
LaToya's parents have issued a statement contending there is no truth or validity to her accusations. But when LaToya was asked for a reaction to the poll results, she showed outrage that some might doubt her motives.
You think I enjoy going around speaking about this? It's a terrible thing to talk about, but you got to get it out of your system. You think I enjoy when my father used to make me do things with his penis? No, I didn't enjoy those things. I hated doing those things, but he made me do them, and he was my father, and I had no choice.
Look back on your relationship with your father. Is he predominantly a good man, do you think? How would you position him?
I think my father means well. I think he means well and wants nothing but the best for his kids. I just think that the way he went about certain things wasn't the best way, but it got the job done. And that's because of maybe how he was raised, doing what he thought was best, not knowing any better. So
you tell a story in the book of one occasion you cite when you're getting out of the bathtub and he whacks you. How old were you then?
I was very young. I remember being younger than 8. Let me put it like that.
I mean, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, and I can't remember what it was that I did. I can't remember if I truly deserved it. But my father's never touched me aside from that time. He's never whipped me.
But he did the boys quite a lot. He was quite physically disciplinarian.
We see you performing, you're getting your Grammys. Why so sad?
Oh, there's a lot of sadness about my past life and, adolescence and my father and all of those things. It just made me very, very, very sad.
So he would tease you, make fun of you?
Yes.
Did he ever beat you?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
And that was difficult to take, getting beaten and going on stage and performing?
Yes.
And why would he beat you?
Because he saw me. He wanted me to, I guess maybe, I don't know if I was his golden child or whatever it was. Some may call it a strict disciplinarian or whatever, but he was very strict, very hard, very stern. Mm-hmm. And just a look would scare you, and...
Were you scared of him?
Very frightened. There's been times when he'd come to see me and I would get sick.
Really?
I'd start to regurgitate.
As a child or as an adult?
Both.
Both.
He's never heard me say this. I'm sorry, please don't be mad at me.
Well, I mean, I suppose that everybody has to take responsibility for what they've done in life. And your father is one of those people who also has to take responsibility.
But I do love him.
Yes, I understand.
And I am forgiving.
Yes.
I don't go around
But can you really forgive? I say this on my show all the time. Can you really forgive if you haven't gotten angry? If you haven't dealt with how you really feel? I don't know if you can go from having been abused to forgive.
Jackson's case.
Called it a highly dysfunctional family, although on the surface it seemed like the American dream.
Yes, of course, naturally. In our family, because that was always that facade up there, smiling in front of the cameras, but when we got home, it was totally different. We lived an entirely different lifestyle at home.
Well, what was it like at home?
It was very, very hard. My father was very strict. He beat us.
Well, when you say he beat you, did he spank you, whip you? I mean, what?
He had a belt, you say in the book.
Belts, whips, whatever. My brothers were grown, and my father would take his fist and he would punch them and knock them down the steps constantly.
Would they provoke him?
To this day, no, of course not. To this day, they are still afraid of my father, and they will tell you. They come to me and they say, Latoya, we have kids in college, and we're afraid of my father still today. But my mother allowed this to go on, which makes it so bad. She didn't stop it.
She, too, was an abuse victim, wasn't she?
My mother, by my father, according to my brother, yes. According to Michael, he would tell me he would see my father beating my mother. I had never seen my father beat my mother. But he beats all of us.
So did this persist all through your childhood and continue into young adulthood?
Adults, everything. I mean, Michael was doing, I think it was Off the Wall, Thriller, and he was still getting beat. But what you guys see is him up on the awards, accepting these awards, and smiling. And my father's chasing him around the house, and he's running from him, terrified.
You said that Michael was the only one that actually tried to fight back and tried to hit your father.
He was a little boy, yes. He was the only one. I don't think he knew exactly what he was doing. But the more he would get beat, he'd throw it back at him and throw a shoe. He would have to always get the last lick in, always.
What's been the reaction of your family to this book?
I have no idea. My parents, of course, they're denying it. And, of course, typical that they would deny it. Denial is the first sign of dysfunctional and abuse as well. However, outsiders have accepted the book. And they understand. They understand about the abuse. There wasn't just physical abuse. It was also mental abuse, which is very disturbing, and also sexual abuse as well.
That you don't write about in the book. You allude to it, that your sister
Ruby left. I touch it
left.
very lightly because it's a very touchy subject, and it's dealing with my sister, and I wasn't able to talk about myself just yet. You have to be ready to come out and talk about these things. And it's a very sad story because Ruby is a wonderful person, I must say, and she left home at a very young age. She left home when she was, I think it was 16 years old. And the reason she left is because my father would get out of the bed with my mother, and he would get in the bed with Ruby. And Ruby would ask my mother, please, mother, get help for him. And she wouldn't. She would not. So Ruby had to leave home. There were times, of course, when my mother would say, Joe, not tonight. Leave her alone. Let her rest. Don't get in the bed with her. And then Ruby called me, and she said to me, she says, Latoya, I have a question I want to ask you. I said, what is it, Ruby? And she said, when I left home all these years, now this is just recent, all these years I wondered if Joseph ever sexually abused you the way he did me. Was it happening with you and Janet? And I couldn't answer her. And she says, please tell me, and I wouldn't. It's things that you don't talk about. And she says, Latoya, you have to tell me. And I said, Ruby, there are just certain things you don't talk about, isn't there? And she says, okay, I understand. And that's when she asked me about Janet, and I said, I don't know what happened to Janet.
Well, what about you, Latoya? Did he sexually abuse you?
Yes, he did. Very badly,
Do you think he did Janet?
I don't know. She's never spoken about it. I certainly hope he didn't. She has never spoken about it. My father, it began with me when Ruby left, and then it started with me.
So when did you decide that you were going to talk about it?
You live with this all your life, and you feel that you're doing something wrong, and you're frightened when this is happening to you, and you're embarrassed. I have been embarrassed all my life to ever talk about it, to mention it, shy, afraid that people can see through me and see that this is happening.
You felt like your family's living a lie all these years.
Well, they have been living a lie, definitely. But the disturbing and hurting part about it all is that my mother never did anything about it. And I wanted her so badly to say, Latoya, is he bothering you? Is he touching you? Did he touch you? I would direct questions to her and throw them at her, leaving it open so she could say, Latoya, did he ever touch you?
Why wouldn't she leave him then? If it's
that's what Ruby would always say, Mother. And Ruby would tell me, I don't know why Mother didn't leave him. And you got to think, sometimes I say, is it because there are so many children? No, it wasn't that. Because after a while, everybody was old enough.
You've never asked your mom that?
Yes. She has no answer to it. And it hurt so bad when I was on another program and my family, my parents actually, I should say, denied everything. Everything. If they would just come out and speak out and tell the truth, it would help so many other people. And that's the reason for writing this. I feel that I'm going to reach out and help other people who have been abused. Because you don't understand, but once you're abused, it affects you terribly. This goes on, and you live with it, and you live in shame. And you can't really speak out because you're afraid. And finally, you get courageous enough to do it. And then you do.
And then you feel like the world's turning on you because you've been courageous?
Yes, because you're doing it. Yes, it's like they don't want to hear it. But it exists, and you have to accept it. And don't be afraid to speak out if you're being abused. It's a terrible thing.
Say something.
I lived at the Lake County Children's Home in Gary, Indiana. There was a young lady there that, not a young lady, she was actually, you could say, my mother. She's degreed, and she's sworn to secrecy because of state law.
Hurry, hurry.
And she came to me and told me that Reby verified the child abuse with her.
Right.
And there is a court record of it.
That's a sister.
That's the oldest sister.
That's the oldest sister. Flo, finish us.
What's your relationship like with him?
I love my father, but I don't know him.
Mm-hmm. Are you angry with him for doing that? I think that's pretty cruel, actually.
Am I angry with him?
Because adolescence is hard enough without a parent telling you that you're ugly.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Am I angry with him? Sometimes I do get angry, yes. I don't know him the way I'd like to know him. My mother's wonderful. To me, she's perfection. I just wish I could understand my father.
And so
why do you think people think you're lying?
I have no idea.
Why would you lie about something like that? Is there financial benefit in doing that?
Believe me, it's a painful story to tell. You know, it's something that you got to get out of your system. You got to talk about. I don't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it when my he molested me. I didn't enjoy that.
Right.
That was very, very painful and very, very frightening to me. I did not enjoy when he made me, can I say this, play with his penis and do things with his penis. I did not enjoy that. But that's something that went on. That's something that took place in our household. And that's something that I had to deal with. And
is that something that's in your book?
That's something that scarred me for life. That's something that I was always embarrassed to talk about because I was embarrassed of the way people would look at me.
Right. I don't blame you.
But did you put that in the book?
The sexual abuse is definitely in my book. You have to read between the lines. I didn't elaborate. The book was written really to address the issue of abuse in every form. And I didn't want to be vindictive and hurt my family.
So what happened, like when you were writing the book, like you said, hey, I don't know if I should put that in, like you were debating it, you wrote the book, and then all of a sudden you're on Donahue and you said, what the hell? I might as well say it.
Again, I didn't want to hurt my family. I just wanted to get the message across that everybody can understand.
Yeah.
However, when they denied it, that's when I had to come out and say, okay, he did it to me too.
I see.
Because I was tired of hiding and holding everything back.
I got you. So after the reaction of your family said, hey, screw this, I'm going to say something.
Yes, and I could say more. And if they keep it up, I will.
Well, let me tell you something.
We would be honored if you would join us.